As an ENFP, I have had the opportunity to date intuitive judgers. Intuitive judgers, the NJs, they make up 7% of the male population about. And I first wanted to go and find them, but I realized I had organically attracted them over the years. Myself, an ENFP with an INTJ, we're more like friends. He's very cold, but it just doesn't have any sustainable potential. He's someone who needs to be with someone who is absolutely monogamous, and frankly, our dynamic does not inspire me to be monogamous with him. As for my friend with the ENTJ, the CEO type, he's happily married in an open marriage now with a newborn daughter, and we're still friends who occasionally have casual encounters in his hometown where we both went to college. But what I really want to do in this talk is contrast between the ENTJ and the ENFJ, who I still have continued communication with. Because the INTJ, true to the meme, he'll just read the text and maybe or maybe not respond to it. There's no long-term potential there, and he's fixated on his systems as NTJs are. The difference between an ENTJ and an ENFJ, the first thing I notice would be empathy. So ENTJs, let's just say CEO, he's fixated on systems, cultural systems, whereas the giver, the empath, he's fixated on the culture's humanity. I can give some stories about this. The CEO, he has a heart, I believe, deep down, under all those layers, now that he's with his ISFP wife, who's made him into a real man, a human. Before he was such a Neanderthal, just groaning and being intimidating. We were in a hot tub one time at a hotel, and we had run into this girl who was going to go to the same college he and I went to. She was asking for advice, and myself as an ENFP, I readily gave it. But for the CEO, he told me privately later that he really doesn't care. And he doesn't. His mind thinks differently. In fact, he sees humanity as a parasite on the planet. Wow. Contrast that with the ENFJ, humanitarian, giver. He gives so much. He needs to be careful not to give too much of himself. The way we met, he reached out because myself, I would vent online and I was the underdog. I was crying and alone and in pain. And the humanitarian scooped up myself and wanted to see how I was doing, wanted to console me, a stranger that he mentors, because that's just what he does. So there's a big difference in empathy there between the CEO and the giver. Number two, the intimacy aspect. The CEO, shameless pickup artist. In an open marriage, he would even flirt with his sister-in-law if his wife was totally cool with that. But contrast that with the giver. He needs to be in a monogamous, committed relationship that could possibly lead to marriage. And as a man in this dating culture, it's exceptional to actively turn down intimacy for that kind of emotional connection, to be such a committed demisexual. Finally, a distinction between the two types. The ENTJ, he really wants to be CEO of his aerospace company, but not at the cost of needing to ask for help. He really does not want to ask for help to become number one in his aerospace company, as much as he wants to be CEO. Then we've got the giver. He tried being a priest. He had no problem doing vow of celibacy, vow of poverty, but he did have an issue with vow of obedience, so he left the priesthood. And instead he became a professional speechwriter. Very different paths between the two. As I mentioned, one focused on systems and the other versus humanity. But I will say what they do have in common. The CEO and the humanitarian, they both make such an impact on whatever social environment they're in. Even just an hour talking with them, I feel so empowered and brave and inspired to do things, to take action that I never would have had the guts to do. And that's the power of the ENJ types.